Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be reacting to Don't Stay in School. This is by a Boyinaband, or Boyinaband, sorry. I have heard of Boyinaband before. I've not heard this song before, but I've heard him when he's collaborated with people such as like Dan Bull. I believe it was Dan Bull and obviously PewDiePie and people like that. I quite like him, to be honest, from what I've seen of him, but I've never actually listened to anything on his channel directly for some reason. Anyway, this one I've heard a lot of ruckus about. This one, apparently this one's quite impactful, and yeah, I had no idea what it's about. Obviously it's called Don't Stay in School. Obviously I don't quite agree with that, but I'm wondering if that's just like a title to draw people in. They're originally going to like, how can someone say this, and then they like watch the video and it's actually like really good or something. No idea. This came out in 2015. Wow, I did not realize that. 44 million views, so it's done really well. Obviously the like to dislike ratio is really good as well. Let's jump right into it. I'm really looking forward to this. Let's put the captions on. They're not auto-generated, which is good. Here we go. By the way, actually, sorry, I know I just said here we go. The way I do these videos is I like to listen to the full song all the way through and then give my thoughts and kind of, you know, what I was thinking during it. Just because I can find it quite frustrating sometimes to pause in the middle of a song, like just before like a certain drop happens, and then I end up missing it because of that, or it's not quite as impactful because of that. So yeah, just thought I'd give you a head shout. What does that even mean? A heads up on that. Here we go. Let's put it back to the beginning. He's got such cool hair.
I wasn't taught how to get a job, but I can remember dissecting a frog. I wasn't taught how to pay tax, but I know loads about Shakespeare's classics. I was never taught how to vote. They devoted that time to defining isotopes. I wasn't taught how to look after my health, but mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Never spent a lesson on current events. Instead, I studied the old American West. I was never taught what laws there are. I was never taught what laws there are. Let me repeat, I was not taught the laws for the country I live in, but I know how Henry VIII killed his women. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Glad that's in my head instead of financial advice. I was shown the wavelengths of different hues of light, but I was never taught my human rights. Apparently there's 30. Do you know them? I don't. Why the hell can't we both recite them by rote? I know igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks, yet I don't know squat about trading stocks or how money works at all. Where does it come from? How does the thing that motivates the world function? Not taught to budget and disperse my earnings. I was too busy there rehearsing cursive. Didn't learn how much it costs to raise a kid and what an affidavit is, but I spent days on what the quadratic equation is. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. They made me learn that over basic first aid, or how to recognize the most deadly mental disorders or diseases with preventable causes, or how to buy a house with a mortgage if I could afford it, because abstract maths was deemed more important than advice that would literally save thousands of lives. But it's cool, because now I could tell you if the number of unnecessary deaths caused by that choice was prime. Never taught present-day practical medicines, but I was told what the ancient Hippocratic method is. I've got a headache, the pain is ceaseless, what should I take? Maybe try some leeches? Could we discuss domestic abuse and get the facts, or how to help my depressed friend with a mental state? No, but learn mental maths, because you won't have a calculator with you every day. They say it's not the kids, the parents are the problem. Then if you taught the kids to parent, that's the problem solved then. All this advice about using a condom, but not for when you actually have a kid when you want one. I'm only fluent in this language. For serious, the rest of the world speaks too. Do you think I'm an idiot?
I've got something to say about that.
Political system, so like a typical citizen, now I don't know what I'm voting on. Which policies exist or how to make them change. Mais oui, je parle un peu de français. So at 18, I was expected to elect a representative for a system I had never ever been presented with. But I won't take it. I'll tell everyone my childhood was wasted. I'll share it everywhere how I was educated, and insist these pointless things don't stay in school.
If you can't explain why a subject is applicable to most people's lives, the subject should not be mandatory. Introduce those topics, yes, but we should choose if we want to learn more. Nobody should be forced to learn something that isn't practically useful. Wow. Okay. Right, before we get into the contents of it, the actual like song itself and the kind of rhythm to it, I loved. That was so satisfying. It was so raw as well. Like it felt like he was really kind of desperate to get the point across, like the raw emotion of it, which is great. The thing, something that I believe I know about Boyinaband is that he's actually like he's really educated. Like he's got so many like I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure he's like gone through like more than the average person, more than even the yeah, he's like incredibly smart. So it's really interesting to hear this from him as he's gone through all of these steps of going through it. Obviously, he's British, so and I think some of this might have been angled towards a little bit more of an American audience. I'm not sure though, just because some of my experience in schools, stuff that you learn about that you know that Americans learn about versus what you learn in England can change sometimes. So I don't know, to be honest. Anyway, let's get into this actual song. Oh, there's so much here. First of all, yeah, I completely agree. I think there's so many things that could be taught in schools that aren't, that become a lot more relevant than you'd expect in real life. Obviously, there's some things that I'm a little bit shaky on, like where he's talking about mental maths. I think it's important to learn mental maths because it's not about necessarily knowing how to, like do mental maths in your head. It's more about that kind of problem solving skills that you're learning there. But yeah, let's actually go through these. Let's go through them one by one and see what my thoughts are on them. I was, even though I said I'd give a disclaimer before this that I don't usually pause during these, I was so tempted to pause and be like, just go off on it. Um, let's just like it straight away because this was great. So I was never taught how to vote. That's very true. So I'm going to be talking from the perspective of a British person. Yeah, we were never taught how to vote. We never really learnt anything about politics or any of that really. Again, this might have changed now. This is from my experience growing up, and there might be stuff that I forgot that they did tell us about. But as far as I'm aware, we were never taught really about voting, other than like what happened historically, um, with different like kings and queens and also like presidents, I suppose. Um, but yeah, no, we was never taught to vote. That's very true. Um, I don't think I ever actually learnt this in school. Maybe I did and I just wasn't listening. Um, so I, so a bit about me, I love learning. However, in school, I was really bad at learning. It was only until after school where I really like something like a switch flicked and I was able to just like start learning and start, like enjoying the learning process. So a lot of this may have been taught to me in school, but it didn't absorb into my brain. I don't remember ever really being told about this. I know it's a very American thing, though. This is the main thing why I was saying that it may be pointed towards America, but then again, this could be taught, and I just don't remember it. Um, I was never taught what laws there are. I really love this part of it because he's like he's just like, listen to what I'm saying. This is ridiculous. I was never taught what laws there are, which is so true. You don't, and like I can't think of. We must just pick up laws, like our sort of passive knowledge from laws, from just like movies and TV shows and things like that, where you have like police chases and they say, "Oh, you're arrested for murder," or you taught that things are good and things are bad, but you never. Yeah, that's so true. You never really taught the laws. Obviously, this is all you can go into further education and learn this stuff specifically, but you have to pick that as a sole topic and then focus on that. You don't get taught, just as part of normal education. There was human rights again. Yeah, no, no idea. I know there's like, I don't know. There's some human rights that I do know about. There's everyone has the right to it's privacy. I think privacy is one of them. Everyone has the right to personal property. Everyone has the right to um, be free. Something. You know what? Let's actually look up the human rights right now. I'm going to bring them up and we'll go through them quickly. Okay, so here we go. I've got a list here, and I'm going to go through them quickly. So we've got all humans have the right to be free and equal. No discrimination. Everyone has the right to life. No slavery. No torture or inhuman treatment. Same right to use the law. Equal before the law. Right to be treated fair by court. No unfair detainment. Right to trial. Innocent until proven guilty. Right to privacy. Freedom to movement and residence. Right to asylum. Right to nationality. Rights to marry and have a family. Rights to own things. Freedom of thought and religion. Freedom of opinion and expression. Right to assemble. Right to democracy. Right to social security. Right to work. Right to rest and holiday. Right to social services. Right of social service, sorry. Right to education. Right to cultural and art. Freedom around the world, subject to law, human rights can't be taken away. So again, that's just a really quick running down the list, but I guarantee like most people didn't even realize there was actually a list. Like human rights is actually a list, so I'd recommend actually looking those up. But yeah, don't know those off the top of my head. I know a couple, but that's really interesting. Let's continue.
Both recite them by rote. I know igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks, yet I don't know squat about trading stocks.
That's true. Obviously, we don't really know anything about trading stocks. I don't know if that's particularly something that's obviously useful for most people outside of school. It'd be useful to know about it, and obviously, I'm sure a lot of people would have a lot more money, but that one's I'm not entirely sure on. It's quite niche. I could be completely wrong, but that's my thoughts.
So how money works at all? Where does it come from? How does the thing that motivates the world function?
That's really interesting because obviously money is, in itself is a very kind of abstract and it's just a concept, isn't it? Like you have paper, but then you have in banks. Something that I heard about is banks actually have more money than physical money we have in the world, and people aren't really sure where this extra money has come from. Like it's not just because they've got gold and things like that in vaults, but it's like there's extra money that's created in the virtual currency than the currency that we actually have in physical, which is really interesting. I heard at some point that that's something that people don't really know where it's come from, but again, I could be wrong there. But that's what I've heard.
Not taught to budget and disperse my earnings.
That's super on point. So many people when they leave school, they have no idea how to manage money or how to just like live, like it's like support themselves after leaving school and leaving home. So many people end up going into debt because everyone that I know goes on like contracts for phones, for example. It's so normal for people to go in contracts on phones now, which is fine, but often people are going onto that because they can't afford it in the first place, which again is fine, but you've incurred some debt there, and then you might see, oh, I can go on contract or I can get financing on this thing, and it's like, oh, it's only a certain amount of money per month, easy. But then quickly, before you realize it all starts building up, and you're like, hold on, I'm like in a really bad situation now. Like half of my paycheck every month is going out to these debts for these purchases. That it's a phone that I got a year ago, and it's not even that good anymore. I feel like that's something that really needs to be taught to people in school, is kind of just how to manage money sensibly.
I was too busy there rehearsing cursive,
Rehearsing cursive, oh my god. The only time I've ever used cursive beyond in school, when you had to sort of write it line by line over and over and over again, is just in a signature, and that's just because you're basically drawing it. That's the only time. I can't even read cursive most of the time these days. Like it just feels like a completely dead from my worldview anyway, it feels like a completely dead kind of form of writing. Because like you look at it in books, and it's like it just looks like a bunch of lines with just a bunch of like wavy lines. It's like I don't know what that means. I just don't understand it. I don't know what the reason behind it was behind beyond trying to look fancy, really.
Learn how much it costs to raise a kid and what an affidavit is, but I spent days on what the quadratic equation is. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. They made me learn that over basic first aid.
That's something that is a really big thing for me. Is people need I believe that people need to be taught basic first aid in school, or just taught it in some way. Um, because there's so many people, at least in the UK. I know in other countries it's slightly different, but in the UK, most people don't learn first aid. Most people don't know first aid beyond what they've seen in like TV shows or movies. But it's something that's just so important to know, and it's something that can as he says, it can save so many lives. And it's something that just really gets to me that we don't teach first aid, and like just the amount of lives that could have been saved just from just knowing to put pressure on a cut, a wound, or something like that. It's super simple, but people have probably like heard that, like, put pressure on the wound from a TV show or movie, but they don't know why, and they don't know how actually useful and kind of life-saving just that simple piece of advice is. Regardless of the actual cut, get pressure on it, and it's the difference between life and death. um yeah, it's crazy. I feel like just everybody should know at least a little bit. It doesn't need to be like a regular lesson or anything like that. It could just be like, a couple lessons spread out throughout the year. Just, here's the basics, here's what to know, and then every couple months to get a refresher on it or something like that. Something so simple. And yeah, I just don't understand it. There might be some like political reasons why it's not done, but it's ridiculous. I was talking to a German friend of mine about this fairly recently, actually, and they were telling me that in order to, this might not be fully right, I'm kind of remembering this from quite a while ago, but I believe in Germany they have to take first aid in order to pass their driving test. Like, to get a license to drive, they have to have done a basic first aid course, which I think is brilliant. Like, why don't we do that? Because that's where a lot of the time it's going to come in useful, isn't it? So, it's not just about saving other people's lives, it's also about saving your own life and know what to do in a certain situation, not to panic and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that one I think hits me the most, is like, oh, I wish that was the case. And obviously I think he talks about mental health as well, which I think previously it was never really recognized as that big of a problem, but certainly, as years have gone on, it's become a bigger problem that a lot more people are aware of. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something they do start teaching, kind of, the mental health awareness kind of stuff in school. I'd hope so anyway, just to be able to identify it, and something as simple as just talking to someone and just being there for them. Because most people, if someone's upset or depressed, they don't know how to handle it. And yeah, there's a bunch of courses. There's a bunch of courses you can take online. One of them that I did, I don't know if it's available to everyone, but I know it's available to people in the UK, which was done by the UK government because of COVID, and it was kind of like psychology and sort of mental health awareness during lockdown, and kind of how to help people that are feeling really down because they're isolated from everyone. Worth looking up. But yeah, so it's really interesting that we don't learn about practical medicines, but we do learn about the Hippocratic method, which is like the really old method of like how they did it in the past. That's really interesting. I never really thought about that. Obviously, it's interesting to learn about how they did it in the past, but then we don't learn much about how it's done these days. Obviously, it's a lot more complex these days, so I can kind of understand why we don't learn that much about them. But that's a really interesting point. The main other thing that I wanted to sort of touch on here is this. Oh, so in the UK, we get the option. Oh, we have to learn in most schools. I believe it's most schools anyway. During school for 2 years, you have to learn either French or German, or I think it's 1 year French, 1 year German, and then you have to pick an extra 2 years or an extra year of one of those two subjects, which is good, but at the same time, not to be like offensive to France or Germany, we I think the A's it was doing it just weren't interested, and it was kind of just one of those that it's like they just rush you through it. You don't really learn that much in it, and then you can pick a language as an option much further into school, but that's like most people won't because they didn't really have a good experience trying to learn it in the previous years. However, so many other countries, again, I'm going to go back to Germany, their education system is incredible compared to the UK one. Like, they, from the very beginning, they start getting taught like English and I believe some other languages as well. But to know that other countries in the world speak at least two languages, at least, and then there's us in the UK, and I believe it's the same in America, just speak English. Like, yeah, English is very common and around the world and everyone knows it, but I feel like I'd love to know another language, and I've tried to learn other languages. I spent like 2 years just not like in school but outside of school trying to learn, say, Russian, for example, because that language I find it really fascinating because to my English eyes it's a very complex language. But then so I wanted to take that as a challenge, and I did. I can read Russian and sort of pronounce the words. Where I kind of fell down though is kind of being able to keep that memory of what the words mean a lot of the time, and kind of speak not fluent, but speak sentences to other people in Russian and all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, I think it's just crazy that I wish that we were taught to speak other languages. It feels I always feel kind of bad when I'm speaking to someone that isn't natively English, and they tell me about all the languages that they know, and they're speaking to me in English, and they're learning English at the same time, and it's like, oh, I feel like I often try and learn that person's language a little bit to be able to kind of speak to them a little bit in that language, just as a sign of respect, really. But yeah, I know that's very rare in the UK. Political parties, you don't learn really. You literally don't learn anything about that outside of school. Your first introduction to voting and political parties is when you start getting letters saying that you need to go out and vote, and then you have to read letters that kind of tell you all the different parties and whatnot. Um, yeah, I think I really love the message in this video. I don't think it's don't stay in school, but it's more the school system needs to be changed to be more useful, practically useful for people. I realise I've been talking for quite a long time now, so I'll end this very soon. But yeah, that's a really impactful song. There's so much there. Like, you can literally talk about every point in there, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree that it should be something that is brought up. I know there's sometimes it's not easy to teach that kind of thing, like such as being a parent, and it wouldn't necessarily work for everyone in school. But yeah, that's a really great song, and yeah, like I said, I love learning, I love education, I love all that sort of stuff. But school didn't really work that well for me until afterwards, is when I then redid courses and things, where it really started to take shape. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now. I'm just completely rambling. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know if there's anything in there that really kind of struck a chord with you, as much as it did with me, like the first aid stuff and whatnot, or anything that you maybe you disagree with me with, or anything that you agree with me with. Just let me know. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you thought. Yeah, I'm going to end it there. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.